I genuinely think that there's going to be a point when millionaires can't afford a Bitcoin. They're not going to be able to buy a whole Bitcoin. I mean, there are mainly two reasons for this. Number one, the value of their savings is going to keep decreasing, and they won't have enough Bitcoin available for them to buy. And then number two is there's just not going to be enough supply. What are your thoughts on this, guys?
There's already tons of millionaires that aren't able to buy a Bitcoin because they're millionaires on paper. They own a house
Yeah.
that's worth more than 1 million. They have paid off some of that. They hold other types of assets that it just means what I'm saying is that they don't have the liquidity. They don't have liquid capital, $100,000 of liquid capital to be able to buy one Bitcoin. And it would take them selling off some other assets, which they're probably, they need to learn what Bitcoin is compared to these other assets. Like there's a lot of people that are into real estate and they've learned a lot about real estate and they think that's the token to success financially. So they buy rental properties, they buy second properties, they buy land for development, they do all these kind of things. And they have to unlearn that because real estate legitimately just is a type of a shit coin. Let's be real. And they have to unlearn that and recognize that Bitcoin is a better long-term bet than real estate. So, and that's, a lot of millionaires have their money in real estate. That's extremely common. But we could pick on any asset holder, I think, and find that it would be difficult for a lot of millionaires to come up with $100,000 to be able to buy a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming up with 100K is one thing, but as you said, there a lot of them just don't have the knowledge or conviction to do it, and that's why I think it's so exciting for somebody out there. You kind of have to take a step back and say, people who are millionaires right now, they're fairly well known in their network of having a lot of money. They have a lot of people who they feed. Essentially, a lot of people are relying on that like nest egg of wealth that their family's going to be carrying on for generations, and they just haven't been able to, comprehend Bitcoin yet. It's more risky. Whereas somebody like me, some people like us, where we don't really have a whole lot to lose right now. It's not like we're protecting a whole, generation of wealth here. We're like, either I adopt Bitcoin or I'm just going to be on the street probably in a couple of years from now. So that's kind of the incentives here from a millionaire's perspective, is like, it's way too risky to put their family's future on the line. That's how they see it. Whereas people like us, we're like, well, there's nothing to lose here, so we're going to go all in on this thing. And I think it's important to just understand that it's not really us rooting it on or our opinion that this is going to happen. The biggest capital in the world is currently finding highways to Bitcoin. However they can, they're trying to get as much Bitcoin as they can behind the scenes right now.
Well, the other,
yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Forrest.
I was just going to say the other thing here is that right now wealth is distributed to a lot of older folks, right? The baby boomer generation holds a lot of the wealth, and Bitcoin is pretty hard for them to comprehend. It's everything they don't know about money mixed with everything they don't know about computers and technology, and it's doesn't really make sense for them to like change, teach an old dog new tricks, to just change this mentality of something that they found that seems to be working well enough for them to move into this new asset class that's completely different and foreign to them. It doesn't really make sense for them to have to figure this out. And change happens with generationally. A lot of change happens because of death. It just is the way it is, and that's just because power, money, influence, all of this shifts into other people that have more openness, more understanding, and more acceptance of something like Bitcoin.
So I mentioned earlier that there's two reasons. So I said either they're not going to have enough money or there's not enough supply. I think you guys mentioned that third reason where they don't have the knowledge to do it. And eventually, I think that goes into the supply. So let's say you have a 60-year-old boomer who does not want Bitcoin. Eventually, they're going to pass away, and let's say they have $1 million worth of wealth. They have $1 million real estate portfolio. In Canada, that'd be like one or two houses, which is pretty sad. But let's say they have $1 million real estate portfolio. They pass it on to their kids in 30 years. In 30 years, that house is, the way that I see it, the number of people who will want that house is going to decrease. The number of people competing for houses is going to decrease. And the reason for that is that we're going to find other ways to build houses. We're going to build higher. who knows, maybe we'll build into the ground at some point. People will be living underground in condos. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're going to have 3D printed houses. We're going to have prefabricated homes. So that's the second one. The third one there, the supply, there's 60 million millionaires, 58 million millionaires or something like that, and there's only 21 million Bitcoin. So even if they wanted to, they can't. Like there's no way for everybody to do it. So the earlier you are to this, the more you'll get as a distribution, the more likely it is that you'll be able to afford one Bitcoin. I know most people won't be able to afford a Bitcoin, and that's perfectly fine. But you also think about it this way. So there's 21 million Bitcoin, 63 million millionaires. That's if all of it is split equally between those millionaires, they're going to get 0.3, 0.4 Bitcoin, whatever the number is, 0.25. But then
Best
there's
case.
other best case, exactly. That's what I was going into. So the best case is that number. But then when you think about all the people who can't afford one Bitcoin and they're just stacking because they just want as much as possible, they might have 0.01, 0.1, 0.15, 0.2, whatever the number is, they have that, and that basically takes away another millionaire from being able to own a Bitcoin. So I actually think in general, whole coins in total, there are probably going to be whole coiners. There's probably going to be less than a million. What do you guys think of that?
Could be. Yeah, it could be. Uh, I wanted to talk about something that Jor mentioned, and Jor, maybe you can get back to answering that question that Rajat opened up there. But you kind of alluded to the idea of, you're either going to stack this, like you could stack this and it's either going to become, really worth a lot in the future, or you could end up just being homeless or whatever. But it's like that kind of just alludes to the idea again of older people not needing to take the risk of this because their life expectancy. And for someone like us, it makes a lot of sense for people with less capital to get into Bitcoin because they're willing, they can take that risk, because if they lose that amount of capital, I mean, all of us, right? If we lost all of our Bitcoin, whatever, we could go back to work. We could find some job somewhere because of our age. We're not going to become really destitute. We can make it work if we had to. And again, the other thing that this relates to as well is companies' adoption of Bitcoin. It makes a lot of sense for smaller companies to adopt Bitcoin, which is what we've seen. When MicroStrategy adopted Bitcoin, they were a couple $billion company. They were relatively small. Semler as well, very small company. Cooler, Metaplanet. It made sense for these small companies that can take a risk with not as much to lose. So these millionaires right now, they feel like they have a lot to lose because they really value that nominal $1 million plus of their net worth. And they don't understand that in relation to Bitcoin, especially projecting that into the future, that it really isn't that much.
Yeah, I think that going back to Rajat's question there quickly is what I'll say is I do absolutely agree. And I think that if you look at the 63 million millionaires, 21 million Bitcoin best case, but if you actually break it down to like how much is actually available right now, right? So the 21 million, that's in a perfect world where nobody owned any Bitcoin. They're going to release it all into the market tomorrow. These millionaires can go buy it up. But in reality, there's like probably 2 million Bitcoin maximum that's available for people, and it's not going to go up. It's going to go down and down and down. So that's what I would say. I don't even know what the number is on that. I'm sure people could figure out 63 million divided by 2 million Bitcoin, how many millionaires will be able to afford it. But going to what Forrest is saying there is like, if you actually think about a millionaire and what their portfolio looks like, they'll have money in the stock market, they'll have money in the bond market, in real estate. How many millionaires do you think are actually holding $100,000 in a savings or like a checking account that they could actually go and buy one Bitcoin tomorrow? There's probably not a whole lot of them. So that means that they're going to have to part with one of their other assets there that they're holding right now. And that's a problem for them because that's the world that they've come from. That's what they're educated in. That's what they're very familiar with and comfortable with. So when you you're trying to take somebody who's built a very good life in that system and you're trying to convince them to, take some risk here and put everything on the line for some Bitcoin. But as we're starting to see here, they're not going to have much of a choice because even the $1 million that they have right now, even though it's going up and up and up, I've talked to millionaires in the last couple of months, and you would be blown away by how hard it is for them to maintain their lifestyle at the current price of things right now, between interest rates, between energy costs, between grocery bills. It's just getting harder and harder for people who are living and saving in the fiat world. And I think that as this shift continues here and people start to figure out what's going on in Bitcoin, it's going to run away from a lot of people, I think, very quickly. And that just shows kind of the opportunity that the average person has right now. If you can kind of just like stick your neck out there a little bit and work a little bit harder and just like put everything that you can into this thing, just because somebody has $1 million today, that doesn't mean that they're going to have that in a week or a month from now. Things are shifting here. Things are shifting. I think if you're saving in Bitcoin, you're going to be much further ahead than I think people realize right now compared to people who are rich in the old system.
So how much Bitcoin do you guys think that somebody should have at this point? I personally think when I say that people should have at least 250,000 sats, people think that I'm crazy. When I say 1 million sats, people think, no, that's not realistic. Like just based on the numbers that we've been saying here, barely anybody's going to be able to afford 1 Bitcoin because the price is going to keep going up. If you divide everything by 8 billion people, you're going to have 250, 260,000 sats a person. Obviously, not everybody's going to want to buy Bitcoin. They're going to be forced into it and they're going to have a lot less. But what do you think what do you guys think would be, what do you think would give somebody a comfortable life in 20 years?
Well, we've been talking about millionaires. I think people should really try to become a satillion millionaire. It's not really a word, but a Satoshi millionaire. Yeah, sure. I think people should. I think that's where people should try to aim for. I know that's very difficult. That's a lot of money, and there's a lot of people that are priced out of that just based on what they can earn because of where they live. But it's still just something to aim to. 1 million sats, then you're a millionaire, right? It's just in that other unit of count, not the fiat dollars.
Yeah.
And I think for somebody who's, let's say, a baby boomer, so 60 plus, you're probably going to need a lot more Bitcoin to retire off of and like fund your lifestyle off of. But I think if you're 60 years old, you should honestly be, and I'm not going to tell people what to do here, but I think when you're that age, you want to enjoy it. So I think your portfolio split should be something that you can easily part with and kind of live off of, because you don't have a whole lot of money coming in anymore for those who are retired. But you should also be thinking about your legacy here, because if you are sitting on these assets that we've been talking about that are continuing to melt over time here and be essentially devalued by your own government, you want to leave something to your kids. Get some Bitcoin. It doesn't even have to be that much. So if a 60-year-old has, let's say $100,000 in savings right now, and we're talking about getting 1 million, that's what Forrest said. 1 million sats right now is what, $1,000? So you can take that. If you don't plan on using it, that's fine. But just get some for your family that you can pass on to, so your grandkids from 50 years from now, they can say, thank God my grandma or my great grandma, took a little bit of a risk here, invested some of their time, bought some Bitcoin, and now I can live comfortably because of that. So that's like from a baby boomer's perspective, that's what they should be looking at. But somebody who's like 15, 20, 25 years old, if you get 1 million sats and you figure out how to protect that for the next 50 years, you're going to be absolutely laughing forever. It's not that you're going to be spending it. If you can get to 1 million and you can keep that for the next 50 years, you're going to be able to, buy a town with that probably. Like for real, just based on objectively looking at how much Bitcoin is available versus the total assets and how people measure them today. So I say 1 million is a really good target to get to, but also understand that once you get to that point, for somebody who's 15, 20, 25, you're going to be buying Bitcoin. You're going to forever be trading your fiat for Bitcoin forever. So that's like kind of a good milestone, but just understand that this is something that you're going to be doing going forward, is saving your time and energy in Bitcoin.
George, can you bring up that spreadsheet that you show us with the $500 per job? I feel like that
Oh,
really
yeah.
it shows you the point. Like at some point, it's going to cost you a lot more to get to 1 million Satoshis. But what that means is that if you have that 1 million Satoshis, then you're going to be able to use it to buy a lot more things in the future. So in the future, it'll cost you a lot more if you don't have it. But if you have it, it'll save you a lot. So I don't know if you guys have heard the quote from Michael Saylor. He says it on a Patrick Bet David podcast. He says, every Bitcoin you don't every Bitcoin that you don't buy today is going to cost you $13 million.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
Like if you don't buy it today, if you have the ability to buy it today and you don't, in the future you're going to be able to get 13 million satoshis for every Bitcoin that every $1 million that you don't get, or whatever the numbers there are. But it's just gonna be crazy. Like you're not going to be able to buy. You're not if you can't afford a Bitcoin today at $100,000, you're probably not going to be able to afford it later on either, unless you massively increase your income. But if you can afford a Bitcoin today and you're not doing it, you're going to feel extremely stupid.
Yeah, well, you have to increase your income faster than the rate of increase of Bitcoin's price in fiat, which is 66% CAGR for the past
Yeah,
10 years, compound annual growth rate. I don't know. I'm not getting a raise like that. I
me
mean,
neither.
it's crazy, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, it's the future is going to be wild with what Bitcoin is doing. I think it's really going to surprise a ton of people because there's still only what 1% of the population of the world is interested in Bitcoin at all, and how many of those actually understand Bitcoin and have thought about it like we have and projected it into the future of the possibility, or like what Michael Saylor said in that quote, right? $13 million per Bitcoin. Like that's just going to blow people's minds. Like they're not going to be able to comprehend it. It's going to be
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, I think that I was looking for that spreadsheet, but I think if we just kind of think of this big picture wise, so let's just use the average person out there who's trying to learn about Bitcoin, get a little bit of it. They're dipping their toes into it. I think that the average person right now does not have a whole lot of disposable income. That's why we're saying if you can get to 1 million sats right now, you're going to be so much further ahead than everybody else. But if you think about it like this, let's say you don't have a whole lot of disposable income. We're not really telling you to get a second job or a third job. I mean, it might not be a bad idea for the next couple of years here to get some sats, but like just kind of look around your house and say you can drum up like 250, 300, $350 of just selling things that you don't use anymore. And let's say you just put that into Bitcoin. So you're not really going out of your way. You're not giving up any food in your fridge. You're not missing any rent payments with that. You're just taking stuff around your house and you're buying some Bitcoin with that. Zero risk. And let's say that this thing, so with $350 today, you can get about, let's say 300,000 sats, give or take between Canada, US, 300,000 sats. Let's assume that this thing plays out like we expect it to, where one day one sat is eventually going to equal $1. That a lot of people call for that. I'm under the opinion that I think that that's going to happen within our lifetime. So you got 300,000 sats today that you sold some stuff around your house for. Fast forward a decade or two away, you still got the 300,000 sats. You probably got a couple more, but $1 equals one sat. That's $300,000 worth of purchasing power, essentially. So it's essentially like buying time into the future by buying Bitcoin today, because you have now $300,000 worth of purchasing power in the future. Maybe you could take 5 years off and go to work after that or something. Like we're kind of getting away from the old structure that we've grown up in here, where you can start looking at what can I buy today in Bitcoin that's going to buy me time in the future. And I think it's a very easy calculation to do for anybody who's willing to put in a little bit of time there. So it's going to just get harder and harder to obtain sats. And I really think that people should be acting with some sort of urgency right now to get as many as possible. There's never been a better chance for the average person to have more real wealth than the people who have held the wealth in the old system.
yeah,
You got to think about the future, and there's that quote that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is today. And that's the way to look at Bitcoin as well. Of course, yeah, it would have been great to have bought in Bitcoin 10 years ago, but you would have opened yourself up to the risk of Mt. Gox, of exchange failures, all these risks, right? That now we don't have because it's become institutionalized. It's become a lot more friendly with the UX. And so a lot of the risk premium or the risk discount is gone. And that's just going to continue to disappear on you over time. I think that it's not worth trying to wait and time the market, and this and that. Like it's just like start dollar cost averaging so you don't get totally upset if there's some volatility downturn. You get excited because you're in your accumulation phase. If there's a downturn, maybe create some sort of strategy where you're buying more when the price goes down and you have just a regular dollar cost average when the price is going up, right? that's a pretty decent strategy. It allows you that kind of middle ground of lump summing, timing the market, but also just getting exposure over time with the dollar cost average strategy. That would
Yeah.
be my suggestion. Of course, not financial advice.
Yeah.
Jory, you want to accept Rajat's share
Oh,
there?
sorry. Didn't even see it there, Rajat.
Oh, no
Sleeping
worries.
here, sleeping at the wheel.
I just remade your spreadsheet quickly just so you can explain it. I thought you said that you lost it. I thought this was such a great example of why you should accumulate Bitcoin today versus later on. Go ahead with your explanation there.
You recreated this while we were talking there? You're a wizard, man.
Yeah.
That took me like 3
Easy.
hours to do.
Easy.
No. So this is basically just showing, I love this example because it's just a really good way for people to be thinking about like how much opportunity exists today. So if we look back to, let's just go with something simple here, the $10,000 or the $25,000 mark there, which was about 2 years ago in Bitcoin. You could have purchased one full Bitcoin for $25,000. And so we look at the $500 there. That's kind of like somebody's disposable income. Maybe you do a job for somebody, you build somebody's deck, or that's just kind of your take home after 2 weeks of going to your 9-to-5 job. Let's say it's $500. So 2 years ago, you would have gotten 2 million sats for that amount of value that you added to the world for going to the job that you do. And if we fast forward now, so you had 2 million sats there. If we fast forward to today, where Bitcoin's $100,000, that exact same work that you did, exact same effort you exerted, everything there, that now gets you 526,000 sats. So about a quarter of what it did 2 years ago.
Based on the current price, that 95,000. Yeah.
Based on the current price. And if Bitcoin does what people kind of expect it to, this bull run, maybe we get up to $1 million. Let's do $1 million Bitcoin. Again, you go to the exact same job, you do the exact same work, exact same amount of effort. Now you're only earning 50,000 sats for that. And that just goes to show that as time goes on here, it's going to be harder and harder to obtain sats, but also you're going to have to work harder and harder for the sats that you can get today versus what it's going to cost you in the future there.
So if you had $1 million, if you had $1 million portfolio, at $1,000 you could buy 1,000 Bitcoin. At $1 million you can buy 1 million Satoshis. Or at $100 million you can buy 1 million Satoshis. Insane.
Yeah, it really puts it in perspective that our time and energy, the value of it is decreasing in sats.
Yes.
It's kind of a weird way to put it, but I think that once that clicks for people, they'll start to realize, like Jor has been saying, the urgency of this. Like, you don't want the value that you create in this world to be deflationary, but with a deflationary currency, it is, and that's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to get some in case it catches on.
Completely agree.
Well, this was fun, boys. Any last thoughts on this? Sorry, Rajat, I missed your message there.
Oh, all good.
No, I think that's
we're
it.
good. That was great.
Yeah, so I mean, just I don't really know how to round this out, but we've been going for a while. So I think that kind of the main point here is like, just get what you can while we can here. Understand where we are. Again, if you have to sell some things around your house to participate in this, don't go selling your house. Don't do anything crazy, but just understand where we are here. Understand what's coming and understand how much opportunity there is right now for the average person that has never existed before, where this thing's going to flip on its head and you can be part of it if you're willing to do it. So thanks, fellas. We'll catch everybody on the next one.
Awesome. Or maybe do something crazy. Sell your house, buy Bitcoin. Not financial advice again.
See you, boys.
See ya.